Today, we're going to be talking about Maze Runner, The Death Cure, and Den of Thieves. So stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. Everybody, I am here with Joel, likes Christmas with the Cranks, Cunningham.
It's a bit random.
It is a bit random, but
I like it.
I'll explain it later. Who am I, Joel?
I'm here with Matt. These donuts are stale hay.
It's true.
That's a random one for you as well. That ties into a later film.
Okay.
Do you eat random?
I do.
Rotten? Not rotten.
So at work, I actually love finding like food that's like maybe a day old that's still okay. Not like an
adventure for you.
Kind of, but there's food laying around. I rarely bring lunch to work. I always find food at work. A lot of times it's fresh, but sometimes I.
Are you eating
that bag of chips? That bag of chips was opened yesterday. I'm gonna eat those.
It's like the forgotten meals that people leave behind.
Not like. I'm not going to go eat an enchilada that was been sitting out for a day. I'm talking about like food, like a bag of chips.
Yeah.
Or like...
I'm trying to figure out if you're stealing people's food. That's what I'm trying to find out.
Oh, no, it's totally fine.
Okay.
It's fair game. They're like, oh, you want that? I'm like, yeah, I'll ask. I always ask.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, see, details.
Yeah, no, I'm not a thief in a den.
If I find food and it's been there for a while, I eat it. That's
like,
kind of what it sounded
shelf
like.
life. No, I don't take it without asking. Anyways, Joel, why don't you tell people how they can get connected with us on the show?
Yeah, so some great ways you can get connected to the podcast. We have our YouTube, which we're having technical difficulties today.
We are.
So we're not doing our video.
A number of different technical glitches.
Yeah, well, I'm having computer issues and camera issues, and you're having phone issues. You got a new phone. Congrats,
I got a new
Matt.
phone, and I'm having format issues.
Which I should be able to help you out with if you can't figure, but you're
all good.
You'll get it. So we do have our YouTube, which is youtube.com/real
The Real Review.
There you go. We also have realreviewmedia.com, which is our website. We have our Facebook, which is facebook.com/realreviewmedia. We also have Instagram and Twitter, which are both at Real Review Media. And lastly, we love to talk to you, our listeners, people that are out there that want to contribute and add to the show. Email us, realreviewmedia@gmail.com.
True story. And
I'm struggling today, Matt.
It's okay.
Man.
It's okay.
I haven't had my coffee.
It's all good. So if you're new to the show, kind of the format and the way that it's set up is Joel and I have varying perspectives on film. He is a little bit more critical, analytical, nitpicky when it comes to things, potentially more negative. I'm a little bit more positive, optimistic, giving of the benefit of the doubt, but also irrational at some points in time, and I will totally own that. That's okay. That's just who I am. If it hits me emotionally, I will overlook a lot of other things.
It's like Raisin Bran and Captain Crunch.
Right, exactly. They're both good in their own ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm more of a Bran, you're more of a Crunch.
Yeah. With the berries, So anyways, that's kind of how it works, and we kind of break down the movies
with the berries,
style. Oh yeah. So let's start with, well, I'll tie into what I called you, Christmas with the Cranks later. It ties into the Maze Runner.
Okay.
So let's dive in. Let's do this thing.
Yeah,
Maze Runner, The Death Cure.
Yeah.
This is the third installment of the Maze Runner trilogy, kind of wrapping up the YA trilogy and the YA movies in general, which we aren't getting, there's nothing.
No,
They're done.
made a few attempts.
It's they're done.
Yeah.
I mean, Hunger Games was the best out of all of the YA
Well, it depends
movies.
upon if you consider Harry Potter YA.
No, that doesn't count.
Kind of a kid YA, like a young YA.
That doesn't count.
But it kind of led us into that.
I'm talking about sure. I'm talking about the YA craze that happened 4 or 5 years ago.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think of strictly pure YA, Twilight, and Hunger Games.
Well, then you have
big ones.
the Mortal Instruments.
Right.
And
there's a bunch of really cruddy ones that we could run through. That.
Yeah.
Golden Compass was that's more of a kids one as well. But
yeah. But anyways.
Yeah.
So this one directed by Wes Ball. Basically, it's young hero Thomas embarks on mission to find a cure for a deadly disease known as a flare. and stars basically all your main people again. Dylan O'Brien, Ki Hung Lee, Kaya Scodelario, Thomas Brody Sangster, Dexton Darden. It's got that would have been a spoiler, so I'm glad I didn't say that.
Wow.
Rosa Salazar, Giancarlo Esposito, Aidan Gillen, a number of other people.
Walton Goggins plays a really great
right.
Fallout 4 character.
Right, for sure. So
he has no nose.
let me
folks.
say this. I actually really enjoyed the first Maze Runner. I found a lot of enjoyment. I think the biggest thing that the first Maze Runner had going for it was the mystery element. Like, what the heck is happening? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like the end of it, but I actually liked it because potentially irrational reasons of me, I like apocalyptic anything, and that's kind of what it led to. It's like, wow, this is a bigger world. What is happening?
Right.
I never read the books, so I don't have that perspective either. So I was like, this is really cool, and I found it a lot of times like really engaging. Like the action scenes, I was tense. This is the first Maze Runner. Second Maze Runner, I was excited. I went in with more excitement because I was riding high off the last one. So came into the second one, I was bored out of my mind. At least for the whole middle, like 45 minutes, I was like, I fell asleep. I was like, I don't even remember it. I saw it one time and I was like, that was forgettable.
I completely agree. Yeah.
I don't remember anything about it. This one, to me, didn't reach the heights that I felt in the first one, but it was way better than the second one. And it was surprising to me how riveted and engaged and tense I was during all of the action in this movie. Just starting off right in the right out of the way. That's one of the positives. I thought the action in this movie was actually really good. And I was a lot of times like, ooh, what's gonna happen? Oh, that was a crazy thing. That just blew up. That looked crazy.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the set pieces, I was like, that's pretty cool. And a lot of the CG was actually really well done. And I was impressed with that. The problem with this movie is it's 2.5 hours long.
It's very long.
Shouldn't have been that long. And it falls into a lot of classic tropes and cliches and things you see coming a mile away. Like they're going to set up this moment that's supposed to be like, oh no, our hero's going to make it. And then something happens. You're like, well, I saw that coming. Like, oh, that thing's going to come here and help them in a second, or this person's going to show up or this person's going to show up. So all those were super telegraphed. Doesn't necessarily mean they were bad every time because, it's just that we see those things so many times. It's just hard to kind of, other than that, I also felt myself, I wasn't like emotionally invested with these characters, but as a positive, I felt towards the end of the movie, while it was long, I did feel like I felt some emotion for the people. I was like, like I felt that. I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm feeling this right now. So it's probably, the combination of the writing and the way it was filmed and the score maybe, and kind of how it made it elicit those emotions. But other than that, I thought it was pretty good. Action film. And I don't know, for positives, that's kind of the basic for me. How about you? Positives?
Similar positives. I think I'll probably have a few more negatives. It sound like potentially on this one.
Probably.
Surprise. I think with this one, the positives were that it did have good action at times. The fighting was there. I actually felt like at moments, I was like, where was this in the Hunger Games finale? Like, that's kind of the action that I was expecting to get with the finale. Because with that one, it was literally just everything. You would see the remnants of the battles.
There's a big battle at the end, too. I was like, it was intense.
Yeah, and that it went there. And I was surprised at times kind of how far it would go with some of that violence and showing certain things, for a YA-type film.
Yeah.
I also genuinely felt like the relationships in this one were less phony. Yeah. It felt like in the first couple ones, it was kind of like they were trying to play up that whole like young adult mindset of like, you're my brother, you're my friend, I'm going to love you because you're my friend, and then just the whole like will they, won't they tension of like the second movie, which I don't remember too strongly, but I do remember there being like a romantic thing where he was kind of like in love with the one girl, but then the other girl started to kind of, potentially be a girl, but and it just felt very manipulative because it was kind of forced. So I liked how this one, it was pretty much clear from the get-go. It's like, nah, he's pretty much only going to go in one direction here with his decision, which I don't want to spoil it, but, it is what it is.
It's all good.
Yeah. So those are kind of my positives. some of the set pieces were pretty fun. I thought it was, it never felt, as far as the set pieces they were throwing at you throughout the action set pieces, it never felt manipulative. Or I'm not saying manipulative. I meant like boring, like the same, like, well, we've seen. I will say, after a while, and this is kind of floating towards some of the negatives.
Sure.
The set-ups and the payoffs of like, hey, there's this fight that, how are they going to escape from this gunfire? How are they going to escape? It started to get really stagnant for me.
Sure.
Because it was like, I knew they weren't going to die right there.
Right.
And after like, I think like the fourth one.
Okay, yeah.
I'm like, okay, they're going to get rescued, or this guy's going to be there, or somebody's going to fly in with a plane, or like, it started to telegraph itself too much. It's like, you can only, I feel like personally, do like at max about 2 to 3 of those, oh dear, what's going to happen now? Like, how are they going to get out of this one?
That's actually why they cut a bunch of scenes from Rogue One. There's a couple of scenes that were very repetitive in that sense, like someone would save the day last second. So, yeah.
That totally makes sense. And good for them, you know? And it totally started feeling like that with this movie. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I gotcha.
Pretty much a negative there. There's other negatives, but I want to hear more of your thoughts.
Sure.
On negatives.
Real quick on positives, I forgot one thing. Makeup and the cranks effects. The cranks are the zombies.
Yeah.
That's
oh,
anyways.
Gotcha.
So, anyways,
I'm so disconnected from the zombie. That was part of one of the negatives I had.
So here's the thing.
The zombie stuff.
The second one, you don't see them in the first one, but in the second one, you see them, and they're like weird CG creatures.
Right.
This one, they were like crazy people.
Right.
Like with good makeup effects.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to just it being, it just looked, it was more believable. I remember in the second one, I was like, that looks weird.
Yeah.
But I really thought the effects were really good and how they kind of portrayed. There was one thing that they didn't rely on a jump scare I was grateful for, where you kind of see a crank and you're like, huh. They didn't like crescendo the music or anything. They just
you mean the car?
Yeah.
They totally did though.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they went.
No, they didn't.
I noted it. I actually in my head noted it. Maybe
it was quiet. Maybe mine was better.
Maybe yours was better. So
I got the director's cut.
Maybe you got the director's cut. I literally was. You're talking about the girl.
Yeah.
Who's up against the glass. Yeah. They totally did a music.
I didn't
I was
hear
watching
crescendo.
it and I looked and I'm like, oh, well, they did burn, and then it did it, and I was like, oh, come on. Because I jumped at it. I'm not gonna lie. That's how I know for sure that they did it.
Man, I don't know. I didn't hear it. I remember looking at the guy I went to the movie with. I was like, oh no, there's no jump scare. Okay.
Maybe they softened it for your version or something.
Maybe I don't know.
Maybe
I got the
volume got turned.
I got the PG version.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
non-jump
I like that part. So negatives. I already went over the main stuff. Too long. Too many cliches. The stakes. I agree with you to that point. It did become repetitive into where you're like, they're not going to die. Something's going to happen. But there was not really any bad acting or anything like that. I would have liked to see some more about some of the other characters other than just a surface level treatment.
Yeah.
But
some of the motivations weren't very strong. I kind of expect that in a YA type film.
Sure.
But I think, so any more?
No, that's really it, I think.
I think for me, the other biggest aspects were, in the first movie, it was very unclear sort of who the bad guys were.
Right.
And their motivations and kind of why they were doing.
And that was part of the mystery.
And that was part of the mystery.
Right.
And the thing is, in the second movie, they're presenting now, okay, these are the bad guys. These are the bad things they're doing. You need to make those realistic. The motivation needs to be realistic. The badness needs to be there. The understanding of these being the bad people. And it never really felt like with this, especially with this third one, that I got a realistic understanding of why these, wicked, bad people were the bad people. Mm-hmm. It felt like maybe they were doing some bad things, but they had a real justifiable, like, adult reason. And it ended up feeling to me like it was kids going, well, we want to be kids and we want to have fun.
Right.
It's like the same thing I say with heavyweights. It's like, the adults were doing some bad things, but they were doing them for justifiable reasons, and they were trying to help a lot of people. But because they're kids, and because they're the stars of the film that we're supposed to connect with, you end up trying. It ends up feeling like they're just kind of manipulating you into liking these people and not liking these other people, And so, in that sense, I never really felt like there was like a bad person. There was like a bad guy, you know? And I never really felt like the good people his cadre of people from The Maze in these second and third films were like the good ones, because I'm like, you're trying to, in a sense, I understand why, but in a sense, you're trying to prevent the discovery of a cure that would help the humankind and the human race. And say what you will about the whole secondary motivations of like, oh, well, we're going to control the release of it and make a bunch of money off of it. But it's like, they're still trying to come up with a cure to fix people.
Right.
you know? And it's like, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So that really wasn't there for me. And so the stakes...
No, I get that.
The stakes weren't really there. It was interesting to see the story play out, though, I think, in this third one. And then additionally, I really felt like the ending of this movie, and I'm not going to spoil it, but it felt very mean-spirited.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to me. It didn't feel earned in the way that I think they wanted it to feel earned and justified for the specific set of circumstances.
Right. I think I know what you're talking about.
Two specific things that happened. And it was kind of like, well, we need a bad guy that's like the real bad guy. So we're just going to make this person now the bad guy. The bad guy.
Sure.
No real motivation beyond just, I'm angry. You know what I mean? So there was just some really stupid
there was some stuff that I was like, it's a bummer that happened. But,
well, and it ended up being angry at the very end because there's a little bit of like kind of like a, where are they now type thing, or like, where are they going to go? And I ended up feeling like
Thomas is working at Wendy's.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it all felt very kumbaya. They're, like, hey, kumbaya, we're going to live in this hostile type environment and sleep. And it's like, that's only going to work for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then they're going to find out one of the people stole something. And then somebody was like, being inappropriate with somebody else. And it's like, and somebody's like farting in their sleep. And, somebody's screaming night terrors. Like, that's only going to work
that's
for like
a drama people want to see, Joel.
I'm just saying, like, I've been to youth camps. I've helped at them. I
gotcha.
I know how this goes. So it all felt a little bit kind of like corny and overly manipulative.
For me, Walton Goggins was wasted as talent.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it was like, wait,
I did
more. Oh, okay.
I
did
gone. I did like his aesthetic look.
I loved his look. I literally think he was a Fallout character.
Right.
I mean, it was designed, but
it was like, I was creeping me out, man.
Yeah.
I was watching. I was like looking. I was like, ugh, what? Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to go too deep into that. But.
Dr. Ava Patricia Clarkson felt like she was phoning it in. I'm not gonna lie. She
was
just kind of like, we need to protect him. This is the end. Oh no.
Really.
It just literally, every one of her line reads was just like, how can I be less connected? So what's going on? The other characters were fine. I felt like the other characters did a great job. I mean, once again, we have Aidan Gillen, playing the bad guy, you know,
the little finger.
Yeah, the little finger of the movie. And it was cool seeing Jorge Guinarcio Esposito. Giancarlo, from Breaking Bad fame, back here playing it up for the screen. So
yeah, for sure. I liked his hair.
Yeah, so overall, it was just, I mean, it was like, okay, it's a necessary end. I think
it was supposed to come out last year too, but then Dylan Brown had like a life-threatening injury, and they pushed it back a whole year. So
and that might have helped. I mean, I'm so disconnected maybe from the characters too that like maybe that would have helped me relate to them a little better and feel like, okay, you're justified in your actions here to try and stop finding a cure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I'm gonna rate it first. I'm gonna give it a C+, 79.
C+. Yeah. I give it a straight up C.
Okay.
So it's like 75-ish, 76-ish range. Yeah.
Cool. I was borderline that in 80, and I think I'm feel good on a C+, 79.
Yeah. And I will say this is a positive I didn't mention, but I agree with you on the practical effects.
It looked good. Like,
they
a lot
did
of
a lot
stuff
more.
Looked really good to me.
Yeah, a lot more stunts, a lot more practicals, a lot more the makeup and stuff.
Yep.
Felt realistic.
Yeah.
So
cool. All right. Well, moving on.
Yeesh.
Jolie, I didn't get to see this next movie.
Right.
So why don't you give us a breakdown, obviously, maybe the abridged version of Den of Thieves.
Very good. So Den of Thieves, his synopsis for this: every day, $120 million in cash is taken out of circulation, destroyed in the Los Angeles branch of the Federal Reserve, unless a notorious elite crew of bank robbers can pull off the ultimate heist and get to the money first. Right under the noses of LA's most feared division in law enforcement. Directed and written by Christian Gudegast. I'm going to say Gudegast.
Sure. Go with
also,
that.
Additional writer Paul Schering. Stars primarily Gerard Butler. Gerard Butler and Pablo Schreider.
Is it better than
O'Shea
Geostorm?
Jackson Jr.
Is it better than Geostorm?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yes. one of my least favorite movies of last year. O'Shea Jackson's got Brian Von Holt, 50 Cent is in there.
All right.
Also Sonia Chung and Evan Jones. So I went into this one with, the last movie, Maze Runner, had some expectations there after having seen the prior two. This one had no expectations.
Because it's just a movie.
Because it's just a film. It's a standalone type thing, and it kind of harkens back to sort of the bygone era, if you will, of like the classic heist thrillers, like Heat or something like that.
I like it.
And I overall actually really liked how it started.
Okay.
It had a very interesting kind of like boom, like in your face, like let's go kind of action scene to start the movie.
Cool.
So the crew of sort of robbers, Pablo Schreider, O'Shea Jackson Jr., like their crew of guys is very well put together and very well like planned and organized of how their heists are going to work and what they're going to be doing, and they have a very systematic approach with it, and it felt cool. It felt like they really did their research and they really didn't just like jump into this like we're just going to try and make a manipulative scene. And then Gerard Butler showed up.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm a mixed bag with Gerard Butler. I feel like there's things about him that I definitely like. He's got an intensity to his character that you can really you can feel there's like boiling anger that's kind of like within him. But I don't know what it was about this one. Maybe it was his look or just the feel he gave off. He felt very slobby and like. This sounds like a minor, but this is just like an explanation of kind of like what I'm trying to say. Like, I could hear him breathing in the movie.
Right.
And not just like what we're doing right now, but you can hear him like breathing through his nose where he's like, and it's like, dude, like lay off the donuts. And like the first scene you see him in, he like grabs a donut, and that's kind of where he asks is there any food around here? I'm starving. And they're like, oh, those donuts are fresh. Because the first heist takes place at a donut shop.
Sure. So is that part of his character? Are you supposed to like his character? Is he the protagonist? I guess
couldn't
without
tell.
Spoiling. Okay.
I couldn't tell if they were trying to make him kind of like just
slightly repulsive.
Yeah, kind of gross, repulsive type guy or not. There was times where you definitely tell him he's like he plays the line of he crosses the border of like what's appropriate as a cop.
Right. Yeah. You get that sense from the trailer as much. Yeah.
And you kind of expect that, but as far as like him being like in shape, there was no reason for him to be completely out of shape and everything like that. They had as well, I would say, a pretty needless. I should talk positives first.
Okay.
So
what else is good other than the opening?
Yeah. So. Very good. When the action was there, it felt good. It felt enjoyable. The stakes were building and rising, and it felt interesting. I also think overall, except for O'Shea Jackson Jr., which I loved. He was in Ingrid Goes West last year, which is one of my favorite, films of last year.
Yep.
He just didn't really sell it with this film. I didn't really feel a sense of like commitment and connection to the role like I would have hoped.
Yeah.
It felt like he was kind of just there.
Interesting to know.
Yeah, but everybody else, for the most part, felt like they were really there and they were really connected with the characters in a good way. And it was well shot. I mean, the overall shooting style, they did a combination of kind of like steady type cam and handheld, but it wasn't overly shaky.
Okay.
I never got the sense of like, shaky cam where it's like crud who's firing it where and when and how. It's like you always knew what was happening on screen and what direction it was going in. There was some inventive type concepts that were at play with them trying to like rob the reserve and everything like that, and in the way that they were going to go about that, and the kind of like the heist idea of it. I think that's sort of as far as it goes for me as far as positives, which took it a long way. Don't get me wrong.
I get that.
I did end up feeling pretty bored by the film.
Oh.
And that took place right after sort of the first quarter. They present like that heist and the group, and then it just kind of flattens out. And
really?
Yeah, they go into like family drama issues.
Oh, no. Okay.
And they go into this whole thing of like, which side is which person on, and are they going to get, are they going to be part of the team? And they're kind of slowly building up to this Federal Reserve job. And it's just, the family drama stuff on both sides, like the good guys and the bad guys both have family drama of a nature. It just gets really old really fast. And it's like, I wanted more like Heat. They had like specific moments of like violence and action, And you're thinking, well, like maybe it's building up to like this really big heist and this big thing. And the end comes and the heist is there, but it's kind of just flat.
Sure.
It doesn't really feel like the stakes are rising. There's like the setup of this one scene that they're just doing to kind of get you to the real heist.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, well that happened, and then they move on, and then the heist is going on, and it's like, okay, that happens, and then there's just it ceases to connect after a certain point.
That's crazy. That's weird.
With interest.
Yeah.
And then I will say another potential positive for them is that it didn't feel like they were trying to make it overly violent, over the toply, ridiculously violent. It felt very real.
Okay.
With their sense of like how a gunfight would go down,
Right.
Or somebody getting shot or getting arrested. Like
Right.
it didn't feel like it was just like guns ablaze and everybody
Yeah.
blowing up everything. Like they had
Right.
gunfights, but it felt like realistic in the sense of kind of how those would most likely go down.
I gotcha. That's cool.
But at the same time, there wasn't anywhere near enough action. It was like big action at the beginning, pretty much nothing all the way through. Yeah, and then big action at the end, and not even big action, just kind of
medium.
like because it's a heist,
Right?
And there's not a lot of like actual violence. It's more of just like building towards this break.
That's weird, man.
The one thing that kind of redeemed the movie as well in my eyes was there was a little bit of a play at the end, like a twist at the end of sorts, and I don't want to spoil that, but a little bit. Like you kind of knew what that twist was. It was pretty obvious, but it's a little deeper than I think I expected that it would be, and that was cool.
Okay,
and that
cool.
actually gave it some points back in my mindset.
Like, cool, yeah.
Yeah, but they needed to play out the heist and everything that happened, and the action and the set pieces for the action moments throughout the movie, instead of just one or two moments. And Gerard Butler, I mean, I don't know, just it was hard to connect with him because I was so distracted by just like, man, he just looks gross. He just feels gross to me. So yeah,
he wasn't like looking like he did in his Leonidas days, huh?
No, not at all. I mean, I know I said the thing about him breathing heavy, but it's like it was noticeably distracting. Like they were sitting in the police office, and he's like talking to his guys. He's like, guys, we need to figure, because he's like eating something. He's like, we need to figure out what we're doing here, because
that's weird.
Yeah, and I know it sounds gross, and probably all our listeners are like, ew, turn off the radio.
Yeah, stop.
But stop. But it was just so weird, and just kind of made, and so I didn't connect with his character because he's like this slovenly, like messed up kind of. Yeah, so it was funny. I don't know. I laughed at that actually afterward, but it's not going to be one of those movies that you just like. It's not a movie you can really just sit down and enjoy because there's not really a lot to it. There's a little bit of that twist, and it's not really great action, and so it's just an okay movie. Just,
I gotcha.
Middle pack.
Rate it, dude.
I would actually give this one about the same as Maze Runner. I'd
really?
Give it, yeah. I struggled with it because the ending did give it back some points.
Yeah.
But probably around like a 77, 78.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, so
cool, man.
There you go.
Well, I may or may not check it out in the future. Depends. Other than that, that's going to actually wrap it up for the show. But actually, let us know what you thought about either Maze Runner: The Death Cure or Den of Thieves, and if it's something that you enjoyed. Also, Maze Runner fans, I'm curious as to your perspective of the films. If you've read the books, like how do they relate?
Yeah,
like do you guys like? Did you guys like the interpretation? Did you not like the interpretation? Let us know about that. You can reach us at our email, realreviewmedia@gmail.com. Again, our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram @realreviewmedia, youtube.com/therealreview, and realreviewmedia.com. You can connect with all that stuff there. But other than that, Joel,
I'm going to go there. I'm not going to say what this is connected to or how it's connected, but she shouldn't have died. She shouldn't have died.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But I'm not going to say what that connects to.
I agree.
Or who. Or how.
Other than that, anything else?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, guys, it's been real.
It's been real.